The academy hall buzzed with voices, laughter, and footsteps. Cadets filled the long rows of desks, chatting with their friends, trading stories, and preparing for class. But in one corner, away from everyone else, sat Leora. She was an alien. Girl with silver hair that shimmered faintly under the lights, and violet eyes that looked almost too bright for her small, quiet face. Her presence should have been graceful, but no one wanted to sit near her. The reason was simple: her fragrance. It was something she could not hide, something that flowed from her skin naturally. For her people, the Silverians, this scent was a sign of maturity, a gift, a mark of beauty. But among humans and other species in the academy, it was treated as a curse. The fragrance was strong, rich, and strange. Many said it made their heads hurt. Some said it was unbearable. Others whispered it was toxic. Every time she entered the room, chairs scraped as cadets moved farther away. Hands covered noses, faces twisted in disgust, and whispers began like cold winds. "She's here again." One boy muttered, "Don't breathe too deep, you'll regret it." Another said with a laugh, "Leora heard it all," though she pretended she did not. She pulled her arms around herself and sank into the corner desk, wishing she could disappear. Day after day, it was the same. The outcast girl with the strange fragrance. The one no one wanted near them. She had stopped trying to talk to others because every time she did, their answers came with smirks and insults. Her heart carried the weight of loneliness, heavier than any training drill. She wondered why fate had placed her here, among people who would never accept her. But that day, something different happened, as she sat alone, staring at the desk with her violet eyes half closed. A human cadet walked into the hall. His name was Ethan. Tall and strong, with steady brown eyes and short blonde hair, he carried himself with quiet confidence, the kind that didn't need words to prove itself. He looked around the room, noticed the circle of empty seats around Leora, and paused. For a moment, he simply watched her, the way her shoulders curved inward, the way she tried to make herself small, invisible, instead of following the others. Ethan walked straight past the crowded rows and sat down right beside her. The hall froze. Gasps and whispers filled the air. "Is he insane?" Someone hissed, "He'll suffocate." Another laughed, but Ethan didn't move away. Didn't cover his nose. Didn't laugh with them. He just turned to Leora and said calmly, "Hi. I'm Ethan." Leora's head snapped up, shock flashing in her violet eyes. No one had spoken to her like that in months. You don't have to sit here," she whispered. Her voice uncertain, almost pleading. She wanted to protect him from the mockery, from the rejection that always followed her, but Ethan shook his head. "I don't mind," he said simply. And strangely, it was true. The fragrance that made everyone else recoil did not disgust him. Yes, it was strong, but instead of pushing him away, it stirred something deep inside him. It reminded him of the old forests his grandfather had described on Earth. The smell of wildflowers after rain, the memory of green fields under a blue sky. It felt like home, even though he had never lived it. Leora stared at him, her heart racing. No one had ever said such words to her. No one had ever stayed. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Why? Why are you doing this?" Ethan gave a small smile. "Because you're alone, and I don't think you should be." The whispers in the hall grew louder, sharper. Look at him, sitting with her stink. He must be broken. Disgusting. But Ethan ignored them, his calm eyes fixed only on Leora. He did not flinch, he did not move. For the first time in her life at the academy, Leora felt something strange, a flicker of warmth in the cold shadow of rejection. A fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, she was not cursed to be alone forever. That night, as she lay in her small dorm, her mind replayed his words again and again. "Because you're alone, and I don't think you should be." Her hands gripped the small pendant of her people. Her scent was not an accident, it carried secrets her kind had hidden for centuries. Secrets that could bring danger, if discovered. But now one human had stepped into her world without fear, and she did not know whether to feel grateful or terrified. The next morning, the Academy Hall was full of restless whispers. Students were not talking about lessons, drills, or assignments. They were talking about Ethan, the human boy who had dared to sit beside the alien girl. Some thought it was a joke. Others thought he had lost his mind. But everyone agreed on one thing: no human had ever done such a thing before. When Ethan walked in, the eyes of the entire hall followed him. He could feel the weight of their stares, but his steps did not falter. Without hesitation, he went to the same seat beside Leora. Gasps rippled through the room as if he had broken some sacred rule. But Ethan ignored them all, his calm face unshaken. "Good morning," he said to Leora, as if nothing strange was happening. Leora's violet eyes widened, her chest tightening with a mix of relief and fear. She had told herself the first day was an accident. Maybe he had chosen the seat without thinking. Maybe it was temporary. But here he was again, sitting beside her, choosing her company despite the whispers, her lips parted, her voice soft. "Why are you doing this?" Ethan leaned closer. His words meant only for her. "Because your fragrance." "It's not what they think," he whispered. "It reminds me of something. Forests, flowers, the stories my grandfather used to tell about Earth." Leora froze, her heart racing faster. No one had ever described her scent in such a way. To others, it was unbearable. But to him, it was memory. It was comfort. "You don't understand," she whispered quickly. "My scent is dangerous for humans. It makes them sick. It pushes them away." But Ethan shook his head slowly, his eyes steady. "Not me, Leora. To me, it feels like home." Her breath caught, her hands trembling under the desk. The word home struck her deeper than any insult ever had. For years, she had been told her fragrance was a curse. But this human had called it something precious, and that frightened her more than rejection ever did. Around them, the whispers grew louder. Sharper. "Look at him, smiling at her. He's bewitched. He'll regret it soon." But Ethan's calm expression never changed. He did not flinch, did not move away. And that quiet defiance shook her more than their cruelty ever could. Later that day, when class ended, Ethan followed her out of the hall. She walked quickly, her silver hair brushing against her face as if she wanted to disappear. "Wait," Ethan called softly, his footsteps steady behind her. She stopped at the doorway, her shoulders tense. "You don't have to follow me," she said, her voice trembling. "Being near me will only bring you trouble." Ethan's voice was calm, but there was steel in his tone. "Then let it bring me trouble," he said. Leora turned, shocked, her violet eyes meeting his brown ones. "No one has ever said that to me," she whispered. "That's because no one else sees you the way I do." He replied. Her lips trembled, and for the first time, a faint smile touched her face, fragile and fleeting. But just as quickly, fear returned. "There are things you don't know," she whispered. "Things about my people, about me." Ethan's curiosity burned brighter. "Then tell me," he urged. "Help me understand." Her heart ached at his words. How could she tell him that her fragrance was more than scent? That it carried secrets older than the Academy itself? Secrets that could bring danger if revealed? "No," she said quickly, shaking her head. "It's not safe for you to know." But Ethan was stubborn, his gaze unyielding. "Then I'll find out myself," he said softly, "because I can feel it. Leora, your fragrance isn't just smell, it's something deeper, something real, and I need to know what it is." That night, Ethan lay awake in his dorm, his thoughts filled not with lessons or duties, but with the girl everyone avoided. He remembered the way her scent made him feel. Not poisoned, not sick, but alive. It stirred something deep within him, something he couldn't explain. He knew he should walk away, but his heart refused. He wanted to know her, to understand her, even if the whole academy turned against him. Meanwhile, Leora sat by her window in the silent dormitory. She held the pendant of her people, the Silverian mark of memory. Her hands trembled as she thought of Ethan. Why wasn't he afraid? Why didn't he leave? Why did he smile when everyone else turned away? No human had ever reacted this way to her fragrance. It should have pushed him away. But instead, it had drawn him closer. That was dangerous, too dangerous. Because if Ethan kept asking questions, if he kept staying near, the truth of her scent would not remain hidden. And when the truth came out, it would change both their lives forever. The days passed, but nothing changed in the academy halls. Students still moved their chairs away whenever Leora entered. They still covered their noses and whispered cruel words. But now there was one thing different. Ethan. He kept sitting beside her every day, and no amount of laughter or insult could move him. For Leora, it was both comfort and fear. Comfort, because for the first time in her life, she was not completely alone. Fear, because the closer Ethan came to her, the greater the danger became. She knew her scent carried secrets. Secrets that could not remain hidden forever. And Ethan's curiosity was too strong, too stubborn to let them stay buried. One afternoon, after the last class, Ethan found her. In the academy garden, the place was quiet, filled with glowing plants brought from different worlds. No other student ever came when Leora was there, but Ethan walked straight toward her, his calm steps echoing softly on the stone path. "You're hiding something," he said gently, his brown eyes steady. "And I think I deserve to know." Leora froze, her violet eyes wide. "I told you," she whispered. "It's not safe for you." Ethan shook his head. "Then let it be unsafe. I don't care if the others hate me. I don't care if I get punished. I just want to understand you." Her chest tightened at his words. No one had ever asked to understand her. No one had ever stayed long enough to care. She wanted to push him away, to protect him. But the truth pressed at her lips like a storm waiting to break. At last, she lowered her gaze and whispered, "My fragrance is not just a smell, Ethan. It is memory." Ethan frowned, confusion flickering in his eyes. "Memory." He repeated, "Yes," she said softly. "For my people, scent is more than biology. It is how we share emotion, how we connect, how we remember. Each breath carries echoes of who we are. For most species, it feels heavy and unbearable. But for a few, it unlocks what is hidden inside." Ethan's heart pounded as her words sank in. That was why her fragrance didn't disgust him. That was why it reminded him of Earth's forests. Even though he had never walked in one, her scent had touched something buried in him, something carried through blood and memory. He whispered, almost to himself, "It's why I felt nostalgia. Why I remembered things I've never seen." Leora nodded slowly, her voice trembling. "Yes, you're kind. Humans, you are rare. Most cannot bear my scent, but a few can, and when they do, it awakens their heart in ways they cannot explain." Ethan stared at her, awe filling his chest. "So your scent isn't poison." "It's a key," Leora's eyes darkened, her hands clenching the silver pendant at her chest. "Yes, a key," she whispered, "and that is why it is dangerous." Her voice dropped lower, almost shaking. "Long ago, others discovered what my people could do. Rulers, soldiers, leaders, they wanted to use us. They believed our scent could make their armies fearless, their citizens obedient, their enemies broken. They hunted us, captured us, used us as tools. Until many of us were gone." Ethan's fists clenched, anger burning in his chest. "They saw you as weapons," he muttered. Her violet eyes glistened with sorrow. "Yes, and that is why we hide. why I never speak of this to anyone. If the council here discovers what you feel when you breathe my fragrance, they will not see me as a student. They will see me as something to control, something to use for. A long moment, silence filled the garden, broken only by the soft hum of glowing plants. Ethan reached out, his voice steady. I won't let them touch you. Leora, I promise. No one will use you. No one will take you away. Her heart ached at his words, torn between hope and fear. You say that now, she whispered. But when they threaten you, when they punish you, will you still stand beside me? Ethan's answer was firm, without hesitation. Yes, I'll stand with you no matter what. For the first time, her lips curved into a small, fragile smile. It was faint, but it lit her face in a way Ethan had never seen before. Yet deep inside, fear still gnawed at her heart, because she knew the truth could not stay hidden forever. And if the wrong people discovered it, both she and Ethan would be caught in a storm too big to escape. That night, Ethan lay awake, staring at the ceiling of his dorm. His thoughts filled with the alien girl who smelled like memories. Her words echoed in his mind. Scent is memory. Scent is connection. He could not explain it, but he knew she was right. Every breath near her unlocked something inside him, a bond that grew stronger with every moment they spent together. Meanwhile, in her own dorm, Leora held her pendant tightly. Her eyes fixed on the stars beyond the window, she whispered to the night, why him? Why now? Her heart longed to believe in his promise, but her fear told her that destiny had already begun to turn, and soon. Their fragile bond would be tested in ways neither of them could imagine. The academy halls grew colder for Ethan. With each passing day, not because of the weather, but because of the whispers that followed him everywhere. He was no longer just another human cadet. He was the boy who sat with the stink girl. Students mocked him openly now, calling him enchanted or cursed, but Ethan never faltered. His seat beside Leora remained his every single morning for Leora. This loyalty was like light breaking through endless shadow. Each day she felt warmth from his presence, and each day she feared what might come next. She had told him the truth, the dangerous truth of her people's gift, yet instead of leaving, Ethan had only drawn closer. And that closeness made her heart ache with both joy and dread. One evening, Leora sat in the academy library. Her books lay open but unread, her silver hair falling across her face. She felt the weight of years pressing down, the loneliness she had carried, the fear of being discovered. Ethan found her there. Sitting in silence between the tall shelves, he sat beside her without a word. Then said gently, "You always look like the galaxy is sitting on your shoulders." Her lips curved into a weak smile, but her voice was soft. "Maybe it is." "Then let me carry some of it," Ethan said, his tone steady. Leora's eyes widened, her chest tightening at his words. "You don't understand what you're saying," she whispered. "My people were hunted once. We were taken because of our fragrance. Used until there was nothing left. If anyone here learns the truth, they will do the same to me." Ethan's jaw tightened, his fists clenched. "Then they will have to go through me first," he said firmly. She turned toward him, her violet eyes glistening. "Why, Ethan? Why risk yourself for me?" He met her gaze without hesitation. "Because you're not a weapon, Leora. You're a person. And no one has the right to take that away." Her heart ached at his words. For so long, her scent had been a curse, a reason for rejection. But to him, it was a reminder of home, a reason to stay. The walls she had built around herself began to tremble. The following days only pulled them closer. Ethan walked with her after classes, shared meals at the far corner of the cafeteria. He listened. When she spoke of her homeworld Silveris, with its glowing rivers and endless fields of silver blossoms, she told him how her people sang their history instead of writing it, how each generation carried the memories of the past in their fragrance. Ethan listened in awe, his heart heavy with sorrow at what she had lost. But with closeness came risk. The other students no longer kept their distance quietly. Rumors spread. Faster than wildfire, some claimed Ethan was bewitched by her scent. Others whispered that she was controlling his mind. Teachers watched them with suspicion, and the council took notice. Whispers became warnings. Warnings became threats. One afternoon, as they left training together, a group of cadets blocked their path. Stay away from her, human. One sneered, before her stench rots your brain. Ethan's fists clenched, but his voice was calm. She has done nothing to you, he said. That's the problem, the boy spat. She doesn't belong here. And neither do you if you stay with her. Leora's hand trembled, her chest tightening with fear. But before she could speak, Ethan stepped forward, his voice like steel. Then maybe I don't belong with cowards, he said. The group muttered angrily, but did not dare move further, not with the fire in his eyes. When they left, Leora turned to him with tears threatening to fall. You shouldn't have done that. She whispered, I'll do it every time. He answered simply. That night, Leora sat by her window, staring at the endless stars. Her thoughts tangled between fear and hope. Why him, she wondered. Why now her people had always warned against bonding with outsiders, but with Ethan, everything felt different. Her fragrance did not drive him away, pulled him closer. And part of her longed to believe that was not chance but destiny. Yet deep inside, she knew shadows were gathering. The council was watching. The students were restless. The world around them would not stay silent much longer, and when the storm finally broke, it would test the fragile bond they had built. Whether it would survive or shatter was a question that haunted her heart as she closed her eyes that night. The academy could no longer pretend nothing was happening. Ethan's choice to sit beside Leora had grown into something larger than whispers. Now it was a fire spreading through the halls, turning students restless and teachers uneasy everywhere. Ethan walked, eyes followed, not with curiosity anymore, but with suspicion and anger. In the cafeteria one morning, the tension finally broke. As usual, Ethan sat beside Leora at the empty table. But this time, the silence was heavy, thick with hostility. A tall human cadet slammed his tray onto the nearest table and stood up. His voice sharp. This is madness, he shouted, pointing at Ethan. He's letting her poison his mind with that smell. The room erupted with voices. She doesn't belong here. One cried, she's dangerous. Another yelled. Leora froze in her seat, her violet eyes wide with fear. Her hands trembled as the noise grew louder. But Ethan rose slowly to his feet, his calm face hiding the storm in his chest. She has done nothing to you, he said firmly, his voice steady above the chaos. If you hate her scent, then sit farther away. But stop treating her like she's less than you. Gasps filled the cafeteria. No one had ever spoken like that in her defense. The crowd shifted, torn between shock and rage, before it could grow worse. A teacher rushed in and barked, Enough, all of you. Ethan, Leoric, come with me. They were taken to the council chamber. 3 academy officials sat waiting, their expressions cold and sharp. The oldest leaned forward, his voice low but heavy. Cadet Ethan, your behavior has become a disruption, he said. You defy the order of this academy by attaching yourself to Cadet Leora. Then his eyes shifted to Leora, filled with disdain. And you, Cadet, your condition is a constant source of unrest. We are considering expulsion for the sake of harmony. Leora's heart stopped, her chest tightening with terror. Expulsion would mean being sent back, marked as a failure. And worse, it would draw the wrong kind of attention to her scent. Before she could speak, Ethan stepped forward, his voice sharp as steel. You cannot punish her for existing, he said. She hasn't broken a single rule. The officials exchanged glances, their eyes narrowing. One of them whispered to the others, then looked back at the two cadets. Perhaps, the man said slowly, we should test her. If her fragrance has unusual effects, the Academy has the right to study it for the safety of all cadets. Of course, at those words, Leora's blood ran cold. She knew what study meant. It was the same word used long ago when her people were captured. Dissected, drained of their essence, her trembling hand clutched the pendant around her neck. No, she whispered under her breath, fear shaking every part of her. Ethan saw the panic in her eyes, and anger burned through him. You won't touch her, he said, his voice low but filled with fire. The oldest council member glared. Careful, cadet, you forget your place. But Ethan did not waver. His jaw tight, his eyes locked on them. My place is beside her, he said firmly. The room fell silent at his words. The officials stared at him in disbelief, their expressions dark at last. The council dismissed them with sharp warnings, but the threat lingered in every word. The council would not leave this matter alone. They would watch, and they would act. That night, Leora sat in her room, trembling as she replayed the scene in her mind. Tears slid down her cheeks as she whispered, I told you, Ethan, this would happen. You've put yourself in danger because of me. Ethan sat across from her, his eyes softer now, but filled with resolve. I don't regret it, he said. I'll never regret standing with you. She shook her head, her voice breaking. You don't understand. There are groups outside the Academy, powerful groups. They know about my people. They've been waiting for proof, and now you've given it to them. If they come for me, they'll come for you too. Ethan's fists clenched at her words. He remembered the cold look in the council's eyes, the hunger when they spoke of tests. He realized she was right. This was no longer about whispers in the cafeteria. This was about power, control, and danger. He reached across the small space and took her trembling hand. Then let them come, he whispered. I won't let them take you. Her fingers tightened around his, her violet eyes shining with both fear and fragile hope. The bond between them had grown too strong to break, but deep inside, she knew the storm was closer than ever. The Academy walls could not hold back what was coming, and soon both of them would face the full weight of the truth she had tried so hard to keep hidden. The Academy felt different after that day. Guards now stood at certain hallways, and teachers no longer looked at Leora with mild annoyance, but with suspicion. Every glance felt heavy. Every step watched. The whispers among students had changed too. No longer simple jokes, but fearful warnings. Something's wrong with that alien girl, they muttered. She's dangerous. Leora carried the weight of their eyes like chains. Her heart raced with every sound, every creak in the halls. She knew the council would not stay silent for long. They had spoken of testing her, and testing was just a polite word for capture. Her people had suffered that fate once before, and she would not let it happen again. Ethan noticed the change in her. She barely ate, barely slept, her silver hair falling loose around her tired face. One evening, in the quiet of the library, he sat across from her. Tell me everything, he said firmly. No more hiding, Leora. I'm going to protect you. I need to know the truth. Her violet eyes widened, fear flickering inside them. No, Ethan, if you know too much, you'll be in more danger, she whispered. I already am, he replied, leaning closer. They won't leave us alone if they come for you. I need to understand what we're fighting against. For a long moment, silence hung between them. At last, Leora lowered her gaze, her voice trembling. My fragrance is not just memory. Ethan, it is power. When someone breathes it in, it touches their mind, their heart. It unlocks what they have hidden: courage, grief, love. Strength. It brings it all forward. Ethan's chest tightened as the pieces fell into place. That's why I remembered forests I've never seen. That's why I feel stronger when I'm near you. He murmured. She nodded slowly. Yes, most reject it. Their bodies fight it, but for a rare few. Like you, the bond takes root, and once it does, it cannot be broken. Her hands clenched, her pendant as tears filled her eyes. This is why we were hunted. Ethan leaders wanted us as tools. They believed our scent could make armies fearless, citizens obedient, enemies broken. They took my people, drained them, used them until nothing was left. That is why I hide, why I try to be invisible. Ethan's fists tightened, anger burning. Through him, you're not a weapon, he said fiercely. You're a person, and I swear. No one will take you like that again. But even as he spoke, the library lights flickered. Ethan frowned, turning his head. A sound echoed down the hall. Boots. Heavy and quick, voices followed, low but commanding. Leora's blood turned to ice. Ethan quickly opened his small data screen, his eyes scanning alerts. What he saw made his heart pound. A restricted order from the council glowed across the display. Cadet Leora Silverese, to be detained for examination. Immediate action authorized. He looked up, his jaw set. They're coming for you now, he said sharply, her breath caught, panic rising in her chest. No, it's happening again, she whispered, memories of her people's capture flashing in her mind. Ethan grabbed her hand, his voice steady even as fear pressed against his ribs. Then we run, he said, her violet eyes filled with tears. Ethan, if they catch us, they'll destroy you too. Better with you than without you, he answered without hesitation. The boots grew louder, closer, echoing against the metal floor. Leora's fragrance thickened around her, fear leaking into the air like smoke. Ethan inhaled deeply, and instead of fear, his chest filled with fire. Her terror became his strength, her pain, his courage. It was as if her bond had wrapped around him completely. The door at the end of the library burst open. Soldiers in dark uniforms flooding inside. Cadet Leora Silverese, you are ordered to come with us. Their leader barked. Leora trembled, her body frozen with fear. But Ethan stepped in front of her, his stance unshaken. You'll have to go through me first, he said coldly. The soldiers raised their weapons. Tension crackling in the air. Leora clutched Ethan's arm, her voice breaking. Please, Ethan, we can't fight them all. He turned to her, his eyes burning with determination. Then we don't fight them here, he said. We escape. In that moment, everything changed. No more whispers, no more rumors. The truth of her fragrance was no longer a secret. And now the entire academy, perhaps even beyond, would be hunting them together. They darted into the shadows, their footsteps pounding against the floor. Behind them, shouts echoed and alarms blared. Leora's heart raced, her breath catching, but Ethan's hand never let go of hers, steady and strong. And as they ran, one thought burned inside her. This bond was no longer just her secret, it was their fate. The night sky above the academy burned with light as alarms echoed through the halls. Students crowded in confusion while soldiers searched every corridor. But Ethan and Leora were already running, their footsteps silent as they slipped through the service tunnels. Her hand clutched tightly in his, her silver hair glowing faintly in the dim light. Leora's heart pounded like a drum, fear pressing against her chest. Every shadow felt like an enemy, every sound like the start of capture. But Ethan's voice was calm as he whispered, "Stay with me, Leora. We'll get out together." His calmness steadied her trembling legs. Though her thoughts screamed with panic, they reached the hangar, where rows of small training shuttles waited in silence. The glow of warning lights painted the metal walls red. Ethan scanned the bay quickly, his eyes sharp. They'll expect us to run into the city, he said. But if we take a shuttle, we'll be far before they notice. Leora hesitated, fear trembling in her voice. Ethan, if they catch you stealing a ship, they'll destroy your future. He turned to her, his eyes unwavering. My future is with you, he said, not with them. Her breath caught at his words, tears pricking her violet eyes for years. Her fragrance had been a curse, a reason for rejection. But here stood a human who called it precious, who chose her over everything else. It filled her chest with warmth so sharp it almost hurt. The hangar door behind them burst open, soldiers shouting. Weapons raised, Ethan pulled her forward. His grip tight. Go now, he urged. They rushed into the nearest shuttle. The hatch hissing closed behind them. Blaster fire cracked against the metal as the engines roared to life. Hold on, Ethan shouted, as the shuttle lifted violently into the night sky. The craft surged forward, breaking through the atmosphere. The stars spread before them, endless and shining. Leora pressed her hands against the glass, her heart. Racing, we're free, she whispered, though her voice trembled with doubt. They'll chase us. She added softly, they'll never stop. Ethan's voice was steady as he turned the shuttle toward the stars. Then let them chase, he said. I'd rather spend my life running with you than stay safe without you. Her tears spilled at his words, not from fear, but from something. Far deeper, she reached out, placing her trembling hand over his. Ethan. You don't understand, she whispered. My fragrance doesn't just stir memories. It bonds. It connects. It means you are part of me now, forever. Ethan looked at her, his eyes soft but sure. Good, he said quietly. Because I don't want to be apart from you, not ever. Her lips curved into a fragile smile. For the first time since she had come to the academy, she did not feel like a curse. She felt treasured, seen, chosen. Her fragrance filled the cabin, not with fear, but with warmth and comfort. Ethan breathed it in, his chest filled with strength, his heart steady with certainty. Behind them, the academy ships lit the sky as they launched in pursuit. The scanners would sweep the stars hunting the runaway shuttle, but inside the small craft, there was no panic, only determination. Leora leaned against Ethan, her voice soft but strong. You'll lose everything for me, Ethan. He shook his head, his gaze fixed on the stars. No, Leora. With you, I've found everything. The shuttle soared higher, leaving the academy behind. The galaxy stretched wide before them, vast and dangerous. Yet, for the first time, Leora felt the weight of loneliness lift from her heart. She was no longer the outcast with a cursed fragrance. She was no longer alone in her corner. She was treasured, valued, loved. As the stars shone brighter ahead, Ethan squeezed her hand. Whatever lay in their path pursuit, exile. Even worth, they would face it together, and in that moment, beneath the endless sky, the alien girl's fragrance was no longer something to reject. It was a gift, a bond, a promise that what others had feared, one human had cherished forever.